This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Hi, the answer is a root canal from a blind dentist, a tax audit, and an initiation with a Wookiee prison gang. Alright, the answer is name 3 things you would have rather done than listen to the previous Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
Hello, Scoundrels. This is Thomas Riddle from Star Wars in the Classroom, and you're listening to Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
As your body grows bigger,
your mind must flower. It's great to learn, cause knowledge is power.
It's Schoolhouse Rockin', a chip off the block of your favorite schoolhouse.
I'm thinking of competing in the next games.
Oh, yeah? In what?
The Force Jump.
Yeah, I don't think that's a real event.
I'd better start training. Here, time me.
Time you? I don't think you understand how this event works.
Here I go! I can hold the flight stick steady while I'm reading.
Oh, sure, but they're also releasing Pirates of the Caribbean 5 next May. So, I mean, they're not going to...
I said good movies, Dennis.
Mon Calamari. Mon Calamari.
Mon Calamari.
Okay, so that's like the Akbar, right? Okay, let's see, we got the envelope, and the question is, what do you dip in your Mon Marinara sauce?
Can I just throw a little curveball to the whole Tatooine thing here?
Sure.
Go ahead.
What if when Qui-Gon says Anakin drop, Anakin says, huh? Yeah, if there was an Olympic sport for idiocy, I'm sure I'd take the silver. But I'm gonna go for the gold.
Yeah, right.
Welcome back, Scoundrels. Here's what is coming up on Episode 11. Official details concerning Rogue One continue to be revealed as we get closer to its December release. We'll take a look at some small developments in this week's news. The Emperor is a football team owner? It could happen. We have the press conference right here. From the deserts of Tatooine to the forest moon of Endor, the Star Wars galaxy is full of varied alien species. Taxis and I discuss our top 10 favorite aliens in this episode's hypothetical. After the destruction of the Death Star at Yavin 4, Han Solo is a restless man until he finds an adventure he cannot resist. We'll discuss Han's entry into the Dragon Void run as told in the Han Solo comic miniseries. That's your rundown, and we might have a few other surprises, so let's get to it. This is Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. It's football season.
Hutball?
No, you mean football.
No, I mean it's hutball season.
Football doesn't have a season.
It does.
When is the season then?
Space September to Space December with the playoffs in Space January?
Yeah, I don't think that's canon. What are you doing now?
Just picking out my roster from my fantasy hutball league. I signed you up too.
Oh, really? How proactive? How many teams are in this league?
Right now, 2.
2. Including me.
Yep.
Well, I hope we're trendsetters.
Oh! Demarius the Hutt is available. He's my favorite player on the Bantha Boys. They call him the Carbon Freezer. I'm going to grab him.
Well, okay, fine, but maybe you should start up the show first?
Yeah, good idea. Greetings, SP1s. Welcome to the podcast that always goes forward on 4th down, no matter what the coaches say. I'm your co-host and frequent tester of Star Wars morality clause limits, Darth Taxus, coming to you while getting a post-workout rubdown in the gymnasium of my flagship, the Assessor Collector. And with me, as always, is the guy who always tests clean of performance-enhancing drugs, Dennis the Phantom Menace Keithley. Dennis?
Hey, Taxus, and hello to all of our listeners. Yeah, it's going to get a lot more difficult to get all of our shows recorded now with football season upon us.
Yeah. Had some wins, had some losses, but mostly I just kind of pulled my quint.
I don't have a response to that, so let's head on over to the news.
Let's do it.
All right, time for the news. We got a few stories to cover, so Taxus, take it away.
Thank you, Dennis. It has finally been confirmed that at least some locations for Toys R Us will be opening at midnight for Forts Friday on September 30th this year. There had been speculation that there would be no midnight doorbuster event. In addition to this news, various outlets have been revealing upcoming products including action figures, Funko Pop, Lego, and more. And Dennis, I wholeheartedly dove into Force Friday last year, only to walk away with nothing in my hands, crying dark tears of sorrow, with people nerdier and more prompt than I, laughing at me.
I hope you got the therapy you need. I didn't go at midnight last year. I went Friday afternoon and still found a couple action figures. My big pickup then was Poe's Black X-Wing and the Lego collection, which I went home and put together that week and had a lot of fun doing. So I don't know. We'll see. At the moment, I'm not planning on going at midnight on Thursday, but that could change. Of all the stuff that's been released, has anything caught your eye yet?
Yeah, K2SO. I really like that figure a lot. And, but beyond that, I had a lot of fun just going out and talking shop with people that night. Had a lot of people that want to get a picture of me because, as we all know, I am a celebrity of sorts, at least in my mind. And, I didn't score anything, but the next day, and here's a little trade secret to everybody, I went to a shop out in kind of the boondocks, and they had everything there. Why? Because it was out of the way, So That's my little recommendation to everybody. If you're really hunting something, don't go to the big central Toys R Us's or Walmart's or Target's right there in the center of, New York or Minneapolis or, even Lincoln. Go to the place that's a little farther out of the way. You might be able to find what you need.
Well, good luck, Scoundrels. Hope you all get what you're looking for on Force Friday. So, general minor spoiler warning coming up for these next few stories. They're all about Rogue One and a few announcements and general news that have come out recently. I don't think we consider them to be spoilers because it is pretty official, but if you're trying to stay away from news about the new movie, then you might want to skip ahead to the next segment.
And we're know-it-alls.
All right. But anyway, a synopsis for the Rogue One tie-in novel has been released. Rogue One Catalyst tells the story of the relationship between Director Krennic and Galen Erso. It appears that Krennic was part of the team attempting to develop the Death Star during the Clone Wars. Krennic then rescues Galen Erso and his family and offers him an opportunity to continue energy-focused research, for which Erso is apparently deeply involved. Unbeknownst to Galen is the true purpose to which Krennic intends to put his research, and I think we can all guess what that is. But Rogue One Catalyst is written by James Luceno and scheduled for release on November 15th. So I don't think any of that's really surprising, other than maybe the time span of the novel. I think it's brilliant that they are tying together the prequels and the Clone Wars now together with the events of A New Hope.
Okay, the one thing about this that was really surprising and in a good way to me was the fact that Krennic rescued the Ursos. And it's delicious with irony, right?
Right.
I mean, just so we understand. We understand maybe why Jen's father, maybe he's not reluctantly working with the Empire. Maybe he's doing this out of a sense of duty to Krennic. But he realizes what's happening, and so he sends the message out, as we've seen in the foreign trailer. Again, spoiler alert. Well, maybe I should have said that before, but, I'm a Dark Lord. And so that's interesting, because Jen is going to go up against the dude that rescued her family, you know? And I think that makes for a great story.
Yeah, we'll have to see how much they tie that down. I mean, we do hear that, in any of the trailers that Jen's been on her own since she was 15, and she's clearly older than that at the time of the trailers. So, it may not be as a heart-wrenching decision for her as you might think, given that synopsis of Catalyst that I just read.
But I think they picked the right author for this because...
Oh, gosh, yes.
Oh, yeah, because if you think about... Okay, let's just stick with most recent, the official canon, and think about Lords of the Sith, and think about all the moral conflicts that Vader had to deal with, in that book. And not only that, but the Twi'leks, the rebels there. He does a great job of illustrating that struggle.
Yeah, well, Luceno is one of my favorites when it comes to writing Star Wars. So I'm thrilled. Anytime he's got a book coming out, I'm thrilled to see it.
Well, I'll be thrilled right along with you, Dennis. Okay. So another minor spoiler warning, but if you've made it this far, you're not surprised. Another new character for Rogue One was announced on the Star Wars show. C2B5 debuted on the web series and is an all-black astromech droid in the service of the Galactic Empire. Unlike their rebel counterparts, it was revealed that Imperial astromechs do not receive much in the way of independence and are subject to frequent memory wipes. Also, they don't get little R2 snacks.
True. They do not. Well, I saw elsewhere, and I wish I could remember where, that this droid is, I think, coming with the AT-ACT toy that they'll be released. And so there's all kinds of speculation about this droid's role, whether it's going to have the plans at some point or whatever. I don't know. Since they went to the trouble to introduce it on the Star Wars show, I'm hoping it has a bigger part than just being seen in the background or in the chambers of the Death Star. But I have this feeling that might be what we get.
Well, especially since that whole set, I mean, what was the retail suggested value on that?
I didn't even catch it.
$299.
Yikes.
Okay, so let's roll back the hands and sands of time. Way back to an era called 1981. You know what the equivalent dollars in 1981 would be for the AT-AT?
I don't know. $35?
No, about $112.
Wow. Okay, I have no idea.
Think about that in 1981. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Is there something special about? I mean, the droid's cool and all that with that set, and I don't mean devote, or get away from the main story. But that droid's got to be pretty friggin' special to make me want to spend $299 on an entire set. Yeah.
Well, I don't think you would. I think you'd go for the AT-ACT.
Well,
but
I don't know.
I'm sure you'll be able to, if that droid is so important, I'm sure you'll be able to get it in another way.
Yeah, hopefully. Or we can just ask Mike Tarkin to paint one up for us.
Right. Okay. So in our last Rogue One related news story, if the Emperor is going to show up in Rogue One, it won't be portrayed, or he won't be portrayed by Ian McDiarmid. During an appearance at the con in Amsterdam, McDiarmid was interviewed and confirmed that he will not be appearing in Rogue One in its December release. So, I thought about that for a bit. And we hadn't had any indication that the Emperor was going to be in this movie. I could see why people thought that he might. But at the same time, I'm kind of glad. It sounds like he's not going to be, which is fine with me. And I'm kind of glad because, he disappears after Revenge of the Sith. We don't see him in A New Hope. We only get him as a hologram in Empire Strikes Back. So I kind of like him being absent. I hope we get a mention of him. I'm sure he'll be referred to at some point with we're getting it seems like an upper echelon of Sith officers. And so he doesn't need to appear, as far as I'm concerned. It changes some of my thoughts, some of my theories that I have from watching the trailers. But as much as Mr. McDiarmid, I'd love to see him in another Star Wars movie. I'm not disappointed that the Emperor himself is not going to be there.
Yeah, I think they're trying to stay true to the feeling that we had in A New Hope, back before it was A New Hope even.
Right.
And that the Emperor was something that was mentioned, And so it kind of put more impetus on Vader as the main baddie, and by proxy, the other Imperial officers, most notably Tarkin. I'm kind of glad for that respect. I hope that they don't show the Emperor, because it's sort of like, all right, cue the next Sith Lord. Wah,
Yeah.
wah, 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 you know what I mean?
Right. And that's a very good point. If the Emperor is around, then I don't know that it hurts Vader necessarily, but it just cuts the knees out from under Krennic. Because
Yes.
why do we care? If you have a bigger bad guy waiting in the wings, then, then what's the point of having Krennic around? So that's a very good point.
Yeah, and plus it puts them, it makes the odds, if there is like a direct contest between Krennic and Vader, it makes it that much more important to us, I think.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, that's a look at this week's news. If you want some more up-to-date news, we would recommend checking out Mike Audette's weekly column, The Audette Set, over on retrozap.com, or all the general news postings on sites such as Jedi News or Coffee with Kenobi.
Or again, you can just call me. I released my number back in episode 5.
Right.
All right, y'all settle down now. Settle down. Ready to start. I'd like to welcome everybody today, being here for the start of what is guaranteed to be a phenomenal Bantha Boys season. And what better way to kick it off than with this brand new station that we have built for the fans across the galaxy. All right, so now I'd like to open it up for some questions. Go ahead. The tall one.
Emperor, what can you tell us of the team's new facilities?
Well, I'd be happy to. So as y'all know, we've just completed work on this new station that is the next step in ensuring galactic dominance of your Bantha Boys. Now, I know there's been some rumors, speculation, and such that we have installed a giant death ray laser cannon, and I'm here to tell you now that is in fact misrepresentation. What that is a special dual piece of equipment that we have had commissioned as a form of artwork to project to the galaxy the beauty of this station, and also satellite transmission disc, so that we can spread the greatness of your Bantha Boys throughout the galaxy for this hubball season, and a large death ray. Okay, next question.
But what about the destruction of Alderaan?
Yes. No, I'd be happy to talk about that. Part of the uniqueness of this station is its ability to take the Bantha Boys special brand of football across the galaxy to all the fans. And in order to do that, sometimes there has to be special provisions enacted and special projects in order to reroute some of our spaceways. And also, we're looking for additional parking for the fans that can come out here and view the games personally. In order to do that, there was regarding Alderaan, there was a special vote that was taken up and ratified, confirmed, and enacted by Sol and me. And unfortunately, they were needed to be removed in order to ensure, as I said before, the greatness of the Bantha Boys spread throughout the galaxy. And so we enacted eminent domain on them. Yes, that's right. Eminent domain, because we emulated the hell out of them. But no, in all seriousness, it is a tragedy what happened, and we are commemorating a special piece of artwork to display within the station to remind all the fans of the sacrifices made to bring us some great hut ball. And for Alderaan, in this time we live in space, hut ball. Okay, next question. Yes, you the other top one.
Thank you, Your Highness. Can you give us an update on the status of the apprentice bank controversy?
Yeah, that is a very, very good question. I know the fans are very, very concerned about the state of our apprentice back, Darth Maul. And I would like to reassure you that his back injury is deemed by some of the greatest medical specialists we have in the galaxy as being a momentary setback. And I feel confident that his backup, Darth Vader, will be more than apt to lead and inspire the rest of the team to greatness. In this,
He was cut in half.
Well, we know that he's going to have to go through some rehabilitation. We expect him back in time to play other great teams like the Wookienapolis Tauntauns, the Rhodian Greenskins, and the Funkos of the planet Denvar. But despite his back injury, he has assured and promised me that he will be standing at the presentation playing of our new Imperial Galactic Anthem. And he better, because pretty much I'll shoot anybody that doesn't, okay? In fact, everybody go ahead and stand in front of us. I'll start singing, "Oh, Emperor." I'm just kidding. Y'all safe. Except for you. Yeah, I don't really like you anyway. All right, got time for one more question. All right, you with the obviously good podcasting voice. Good galaxy to you.
Good galaxy to you?
Mm-hmm.
Highness, can you discuss the recent moves in the head coach position?
Well, we feel very confident and reassured that the current coach, Grand Moff Tarkin, will continue to lead your Bantha boys into the future and victory. And we do not, despite all our abilities to see the future, expect nor anticipate any sort of issues or difficulties that would cause him to have to leave the position in the immediate future. I'm getting told that we have to cut this short now. So y'all have a great football season, and let's go Bantha boys.
One of the many things that makes Star Wars great is the diversity of the alien species. The galaxy far, far away is populated by species of aliens of all shapes and sizes. In part 1 of this episode's hypothetical, Taxus and I discuss our top 10 favorite alien species from Star Wars. So, when we were thinking about this segment, Taxus, I was thinking in a broader sense, not necessarily a specific named alien, as opposed to looking at the different species in general, because they are all over the place, and like I just said, in many different shapes and sizes. So with that in mind, we'll do our top 10-ish, in not necessarily any particular order, but what do you got first?
Well, I made selections, I think, based on the importance of the main storyline.
Okay.
That would be, of course, the ultra-canonical movies revolving around the Skywalkers. And maybe, and then I started thinking through, I said, well, okay, now we got some extra layers that are almost held with as much reverence and as much importance. And so what's as important as that? So those are my two layers I think I kind of threw out there. The first one I'm going to grab course. I think it's very evident. I'm going to grab the Twi'leks.
All right.
And the reason I'm going to grab them is because they've had such an impact on what's happening now, and also what's happened after the fall of the Empire. They've, the first time we see them, we see just Bib Fortuna, right?
Well, and Ula.
Well, and Ula, but, you didn't want to see her afterwards, I guarantee you.
True.
But, we didn't really know. I mean, it was just like Jabba's henchman and everything. That's all right. And he's like, Te Wanga Wanga,
Right.
And sure, that sounds cool. But now, especially through the Clone Wars, and then now through Rebels, and by extension, Lords of the Sith, and afterwards in Bloodline, we start to see what's portrayed not just lackeys, but a race of people who are fiercely independent, and almost self-destructedly so. And they're the kind of people that would be first to join up, and in fact do join up with any sort of concept of rebellion. But they're not quick to jump into the concept of a new republic. They've always been like ruggedly individualists, and I really respect that about them.
Yeah, that's a good entry. We do see them all over the place, from gangsters' hideouts now to important members of the rebellion. Most notably Hera, who's turning out to be fairly important in the formation of the alliance, at least on some level. So I do like that. And it is a good representative species, because in many ways they were being enslaved by gangsters, and they were being oppressed by the Empire. And so they have reasons to rebel. They have, and in some cases, they go the route of Bib Fortuna, which is they join up with criminal syndicates, and in other cases, they become freedom fighters. And and many of them are just trying to make their way whatever they can. So they fill a lot of different niches in the Star Wars galaxy, and it's a good entry.
Yeah. Plus, let's face it, Twi'lek girls are hot.
Well, teach their own.
Got some great Leku.
All right. Well, for my first entry, I was thinking back to the first time we saw any aliens in Star Wars, and the first appearance of an alien ever was in A New Hope, back before it was A New Hope, after R2-D2 and C-3PO crash land on Tatooine. It's not long before 3PO is picked up on a sandcrawler, and R2-D2 has an unfortunate encounter with the Jawas. So they made my list, and they're important for the obvious reason, and that they bring the droids to Luke Skywalker, and I just find them interesting. There's not a ton known about them. Again, it's another species that is simply doing their best to survive. They're largely isolated to Tatooine. They do survive by scavenging droids and anything else that they can find on that godforsaken planet in the desert, and then repurposing it, selling it, sometimes scamming the people that they sell these things to. And I kind of like some of their more recent appearances. They showed up a few times in the Clone Wars, especially when in the movie when they returned to Tatooine to give Jabba's son back to him. I love that scene of the three of them running over the sand dune as the twilight comes crashing into it. And then recently in the Star Wars comic, Obi-Wan Kenobi makes a kind of a deal with them to help protect them from Tuskens in order to get some parts for Luke Skywalker's Skyhopper. In order to fix that. Cool. So, yeah, they're a useful storytelling tool, and I've enjoyed their appearance.
And okay, so watching them in the very first time I saw them, it's like, what is that? And it's almost laughable now, but I had such a sense of apprehension for R2 as he was going through that canyon,
right?
And what was happening, and seeing these little things in hoods, and you can't see their faces, and they got these little shiny eyes and all that. They were very mysterious,
Right.
later, it's kind of funny because, as a counterpoint, 3PO just knows what they are. Can't abide those Jawas, you know what I mean? And, it's kind of funny how he kind of shows his, his disdain for them. It's kind of a funny emotion to get from a droid.
Yeah, well, he has a good reason because they're trying to sell him. But you're absolutely right,
dude. And indeed, and one of the other things that really makes him stand out to me is, in a pinch, they make really good firewood.
Yeah, when they've outlived their days, why not?
Sure. Okay. Well, my next pick would be right around the same as yours. I think the Tusken Raider is one of the more interesting aliens. Again, we don't really know what they are. And I know in the EU lore, they were kind of whatever they could get, humans or any sort of alien or whatever. But, and there was the old story that they were once the same, and this was something in the Old Republic, once the same species as the Jawa, until some sort of calamitous event happened on Tatooine and caused them to have divergent paths for some reason. But, if it wasn't for the Tusken Raiders, we wouldn't have old Ben coming out of, hiding, and he wouldn't, making the crazy noises to throw them off, and having a purpose to taking Luke to safety, for example. So that's why they made it on my little pantheon of some of the most interesting and important characters or aliens in Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I like them. One of my favorite reasons why is they're so much fun to imitate. My 8-year-old does a great impression of the Tuskens when they're attacking Luke as he's spying on them when he's trying to recover R2-D2. So,
that made me so tense as a kid. What's he looking at? He's looking through what is that walking around that giant thing? And then all of a sudden it jumps up and you're like, wow!
Right. I mean, and the other thing is that they also satisfy that element of whimsy that I'm fond of referencing, that I heard George Lucas talk about once on the, I think it was the original DVD, one of the special features, in that, they again, it's another species. They dwell in the desert, and they ride these banthas that, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why are in the desert with that much hair and fur covering them. But they
can't afford a good groomer,
right? And they live in tribes. They roam the desert. They ride in single file to hide their numbers. There's lore built up around them. There's been some world building done there, and back in the prequels. They're responsible for kidnapping Shmi Skywalker, and a whole bunch of farmers got together and rode out there to challenge them, and it did not go well. So,
and that's a major step towards Anakin's descent to the dark side, and the Emperor using that as leverage against him. I mean, that's a significant point.
Right. Well, for my next pick, I went to The Empire Strikes Back, and I guess I need to make a distinction here. When I'm thinking of these alien species, I'm largely thinking of the sentient species, the movers and shakers in the galaxies, not the Tauntauns, not Minox, or any of these less intelligent creatures that are out there. I mean, they're technically aliens, but that's not where this conversation's going. But
they're more fauna.
Right. But I was trying to think of, other than Chewbacca, which we haven't discussed Wookiees yet. What was the first alien we saw in The Empire Strikes Back? And I thought about it, and I think it's Bosk, the Trandoshan bounty hunter that we see. Well, I mean, I guess technically there's Zuckuss as well, is on that same bridge, but he's not my favorite. But I went with the Trandoshan. Just again, it's one of these things that makes Star Wars great. Here is this reptilian species. He's half dressed, and the fact that he's got nothing on his feet, he's barefoot, standing on the bridge of the Star Destroyer, and we get that. I think it's Captain Piet at the time.
Yeah.
Or Admiral Piet. He's like, or more of the officers, and bounty hunters. We don't need their scum. And there's Bosk standing right over him, and he just, just growls them. Doesn't actually get any dialogue. Well, like most of the bounty hunters in that movie. And then we don't see him again in that movie. And I don't think we see him again in any of the movies after that. I don't think he shows up at Jabba's palace at all. But now he's shown up again in the Clone Wars, working with Boba Fett, Nara Singh, and others. And then he was also in one of the Rebels side stories, books was out there. He has a little job he does with Ezra, which is kind of cool.
That's cool.
But yeah, doesn't play a major role, doesn't bring about any major events. We see him in Clone Wars. We see other Trandoshans in Clone Wars as well. But when they're kidnapping Wookiees and the like. But so anyways, Trandoshans. That was my next entry.
Yeah, and they're really cool because I think you're right. At this point in time, we've seen a lot of technology, and humans. And then all of a sudden, you're thrown to the bridge, right? And you're right, that scene with Piet saying, "Bandientos," And it pans up and you just see something that contrasts so much with the rest of the scene, Plus, Trandoshans are really, I know this was EU. I think it survived and made it into official canon, but weren't they in the same star system as Wookiees?
Right, yeah, is like the 5th and 6th planet or whatever their star system was or something like that.
So they and Wookiees were kind of natural enemies? Because
the Trandoshans would come and slave them and sell them off, and just hunt them in general.
So they're strong enough to be, counter to Wookiees. It's, they're a really good alien. I agree. Okay, well, I would say my next alien is going to be the Mon Calamari. Yay! Not only are they pretty, but they have an excellent grasp on technology, obviously have some sort of military concept to them, and they brought it to the table with the rebels. I guess right now we don't know really the timeline of all that, but we do know that a substantial number of the, might say, significant rebel capital ships were of Mon Calamari design. They're the only things definitely that go head to head with Star Destroyers, at least, from what I remember. So I'm going to name them. I think they're very significant for the fact that without them, there probably wouldn't have been enough strength to even engage the forces at the Death Star at the Battle of Endor.
Yeah, Star Wars has got a pretty good tapestry of alien species that come from water-based worlds, including the Mon Cals, the Quarren, share the same planet, and then later the Nautolans. And I'm certain there's others, but those are the three that come to mind right now. But yeah, they're how can you not love Admiral Akbar and his classic "as a trap" line.
And every time he says something, we see here,
Yeah, takes a good gurgling breath. He had such a great presence in the EU. I remember in the New Jedi Order series, whether you like it or not, he was instrumental in helping to finally kind of put together a strategy that would ultimately defeat the Yuuzhan Vong's fleets. And I remember being quite bummed when he passed away in the Legends Galaxy. And I think it was recently, maybe it was one of the Aftermath books where Mon Mothma was talking about how if the Empire had been successful at Endor, their plan was to blockade Mon Calamari and one of the other planets, and then bring the Death Star and to destroy both those worlds and kind of bring it into the rebellion once and for all. But so, anyways, that just goes to demonstrate how important they were to the Alliance and the overall freedom movement in the galaxy.
Very much so.
Well, for my next entry, I am going with the Abednedo. I think that's how you pronounce it. And if you're not sure who they are, they haven't been around all that long. They first appeared in The Force Awakens. That was the species that Alo Asti, the X-Wing pilot, represented. And there was one in the village on Jakku. I think that was... I'm going to get this wrong. But they were all named after Beastie Boys songs. Communicad or something like that.
Paul's Boutique?
No, but there was another one. I can't remember what it was.
Funky Boss?
Something like that. Yeah, actually, I think it was like something a brass monkey or something like that. I think it was named after a brass monkey. But anyway,
and his brother, Da Funky Monkey.
Exactly. But anyway, they haven't had an opportunity to really establish themselves much. But it was interesting when they got around to doing The Force Awakens, that instead of relying on the tapestry of alien species that have been established in these previous 6 movies, sure, they brought back Amon Calamari, they brought back, Akbar, and then they brought back Nien Nunb, but they made entirely new species to populate this movie with, which was kind of surprising. I don't think there was a Twi'lek to be found anywhere in that movie. But
I was disappointed with that, by the way.
I know you were. But so anyways, we got Aloasti, who unfortunately didn't survive the movie. But I just, something about them, they thought enough of that species to include more than one. So I'm suspecting we're going to probably be seeing them again going forward.
Yeah, either that or they ran out of money.
Possible, but $200 million movies, I'm sure that was the least of their worries.
That's right. Well, that's a very good pick. I forgot about some of the species in The Force Awakens. I'm kind of still stuck in the Old Republic era, or the prequels and the original trilogy era. Mm-hmm. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Geonosians. Why? Well, let's face it. Significant impact in Attack of the Clones. The first major battle of the Clone Wars. They were major contributors of weapons to the Confederacy. Remember? And they had the ultimate weapon designs. So where would we be? Roll it forward with A New Hope and even to Endor without the Geonosians designing the Death Star.
They do play a key role. It's interesting. I had put out on our Twitter feed a request for people to kind of email in and let us know about some of their favorite alien species. And Jason from Blast Points emailed to let us know that his favorite aliens was Paga the Lesser from Geonosia. Yes, you do that very well. Their importance can't be understated.
That means here, hold my beer and watch this.
And what's interesting is that one of the things that's interesting is that, we first see them on Geonosis with their droid factories, and that's of course where Jango ran off to and was pursued by Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then later there's the major battle that starts in the arena with all the battle droids and the monsters and whatnot. But here's a species that was so important to the Separatist movement, only to get completely wiped out.
Yeah.
When the Separatists were defeated and that war was over, as the Republic consolidated into an empire and the Emperor began to build his Death Star. They were absolutely key to coming up with those plans and beginning the construction of that project. And as we saw in both the Darth Vader comics and in Rebels, now they're gone. They were sterilized and wiped out.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask. Do we know exactly how they were eliminated, or is that still a little bit of a mystery?
We don't have the exact details, but it's reading between the lines in the comic book, Darth Vader. It seems like they got basically the intergalactic version of Terminex to come out and largely wipe them out from space, and then they were sterilized. The queen that they find in that issue, and I can't remember exactly which one it was, she was no longer capable of producing eggs, and so she kind of melded herself to some sort of a mobile droid factory and was making robotic Geonosian warriors to replace the ones that she could no longer give birth to, so to speak, by laying eggs.
See, I'd like to think that maybe the Geonosians were the first recipients of the Empire's weapons testing.
Could be.
And it's like we were talking about in a couple episodes back. what if what we're seeing happen on Jedha in Rogue One is a culmination of additional weapons testing, for not a fully operational battle station, Maybe
Guess we'll find out in December.
Guess we will,
Yeah. All right. Well, moving along here, the next entry that I've got into this field is the Togruta, which most notably is represented by Ahsoka recently. And, we saw one of them during the movies, and that was Shakti. And I think the actual first appearance was that Clone Wars micro series that Shakti appeared in, and the other version of General Grievous was much more terrifying than what we got in Revenge of the Sith. But Shakti was there, but she didn't really get to do a whole lot in the movies. She later showed up in the Force Unleashed as someone for Starkiller to fight. But then we get Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, who started off as something of an annoying sidekick for Anakin Skywalker, but then not only she grew into a fan favorite and kind of became Anakin's conscience in many ways, and was part of his voyage through the Force and along his way from falling from the light to the dark. And so, I mean, her importance, the importance of the Togruta is largely wrapped up in just Ahsoka. But, they're not too different from Twi'leks, but different enough.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think that Ahsoka and, by extension, the Togruta need to be included. The impact on the fandom right now is significant. I mean, if you would have asked me back in 2003, 2002, hey, what's a Togruta? I would have been like, I don't know, what's a Togruta with you, Right. And now everybody knows what that species is, especially because of Ahsoka. And yeah, I agree with you. Much like the Twi'lek, we can't forget their big Leku.
This is true. So what's next on your list?
Well, okay. We're getting to, I believe, number 5 for me, right?
Right.
Okay. I'm going to say the Hutts.
Okay.
Let's face it. Vile gangsters, significant power across the universe. Everybody either, well, I wouldn't say respect, but people fear them, The Empire allows them to exist. They're powerful, and they continue to maintain power for somehow, even after the fall of the Empire. Not necessarily in the ways that they did during the Empire or previously to it, but let's face it, the Republic existed for at least 1,000 years, and did they ever completely deal with the Hutts in a way that they would have liked to? No, they didn't. So obviously the Hutts proved to be powerful, yet I'm not sure why.
Well, for some, it seems that they have control of money in various different areas, and and who's ever got wealth has some measure of power. And you're right. We've seen them have an influence on galactic events. When we just talked to Thomas on our last episode, and what if the hyperdrive hadn't taken a hit on the Queen Starship when they left Naboo, and so they ended up on Tatooine, which was controlled by the Hutts, which created problems because they couldn't find security there, they couldn't find assistance there, they had to come up with it on their own, as opposed to if they had landed on a Republic world, hey, no big deal, they would have found help. Slavery existed on worlds that were controlled by the Hutts, and things like pod racing, which was largely seems like it must have been outlawed in a lot of Republic worlds. That happened on worlds that the Hutts controlled.
Yeah, let's try to get rid of all our fun.
Right, and and then when Jabba, dies at Princess Leia's hands at the Return of the Jedi, that created something of a power void that was the subject of novels in the old Legends universe, and so the Hutts are there, and they definitely had an influence. You know, is something that was pointed out to me recently was that the Hutts may have been, probably were inspired by Emperor Leto II from Dune. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with that series, but at one point, Leto Atreides II, he kind of, how to describe it, merges as a child with one of the worms of Dune and becomes something of a half man, half worm / slug thousands of years later. And his long life and his precognitive abilities help him kind of control the galaxy, and so there's a good chance that inspired Jabba and the Hutts, at least what they would become. Because if you may remember, Jabba was supposed to appear in A New Hope, and he was filmed with a human actor at the time, and only later when they got to Return of the Jedi did they turn him into a slug.
Right. And I always kind of wondered, how did this thing get to be so powerful? You know what I mean? And I mean, clearly he has good taste. I mean, he keeps Twi'lek slave girls.
You've got to get off that, man.
I don't know what my thing is, man. I'm seeing a therapist. Okay. But, I just never understood how this happened. And now we're seeing modern, in the iteration in the comics and everything, we see that they have prosthetics that they use to try to move around a little faster. But I seem to remember from the EU, the way they would move is by moving like a giant slug or something.
Well, you don't even have to go to the U for that. You can just see what they did with the special edition of A New Hope when Jabba's in the the landing bay. He slithers around like a slug.
And maybe we think of them as being slow just because they're so big, but maybe they're big and yet equally powerful so that they can move with some speed. I just never thought, how did this develop to be a dominant species? You know?
Well, it's interesting you brought up the comics. We've seen most recently Gracchus the Hutt and some of his Hutt minions. They make Jabba look puny.
Yes.
These guys are absolutely gigantic. Gracchus and some of these other Hutts, they are extremely strong. They're huge. They can pick up a humanoid like Poe with a single hand and hold them up. I don't think Jabba could do that. He wasn't that big, and two, his arms didn't appear to be that strong, or that long or big by comparison. So, I think there's definitely more to the Hutts than we've seen in the movies.
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing some stories about that vacuum of power after, Empire, especially in the new canon.
Right. Well, moving on to my last entry into this top 10 list, and I wasn't sure how to classify this, so I'm going to describe it this way. It's the Zabrak and the Night Sisters.
Yes.
Darth Maul, Savage Opress, both, probably the two most famous Zabrak that we've seen. And then their female counterpart seems to be the Night Sisters, Asajj Ventress and Mother Talzin. The reason why I picked them was that Darth Maul was, of course, of Sith, and then Savage Opress was supposed to be a Sith apprentice at some point, and then, but then it was through Asajj Ventress that we kind of got to know another branch of Force users that hailed from Dathomir, and they had fighting abilities, but Asajj really got her combat training from Jedi and Sith. But then Mother Talzin was much more of a witch, and she always had those green floating force effects that she used when she was conjuring the Force. So I think the reason I picked them was it really expand. One, Darth Maul is just cool. I know some people aren't exactly taken with his reemergence in the Clone Wars after having been chopped in half by Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Savage Opress was fantastic. I really liked his addition, but again, the reason why I picked them was it was another avenue to looking at the Force.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so are these technically two different alien species you picked?
I don't think they are, because if you remember, Asajj went to the brothers' village to to basically find one of them. Yeah, simply she claimed to find one of them to be her mate, and that ended up being Savage Press that she brought back, and then they offered up Savage to Count Dooku as a new apprentice.
So, have we seen though female? Okay, Zabrak with horns too. I mean, I guess I'm a little turned around.
Saw them in the old. We've seen them in Legends, but we have not seen a female Zabrak with the horns and the same type of tattoos that the males have in the current canon, at least not to my knowledge.
Okay,
and I'm sure if I'm wrong, someone listening to this will let us know.
I wonder if anybody's asked Pablo Hidalgo about that. See if he's
knock yourself out.
You hear that, Pablo? Because I know you listen to this show, or at least I hope you do. Anyway, but no, I've always wondered that. I've wondered, okay, is this some sort of cross speciesism going on here, or have they enslaved Zabrak? I know in EU they I think they were considered like Zabrak were on one planet, but Dathomir they were also on another planet, and like at some point in time the species I guess populated both of them,
right.
But I never realized that the Night Sisters were actually possibly the same, as
right.
that, which makes you wonder, is the Zabrak species now kind of gone?
That's a good question. I don't know that they are. We just never saw that many of them on Dathomir. But I guess in Dark Disciple, Asajj was treating them like they'd pretty much been wiped out.
Yeah.
So they very well could be at this point.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But that's a good pick.
Yeah, well, that's our top 10. Kind of by way, I guess, of honorable mention, we did receive some other emails. The first one comes to us from James the Sky Geek. I remember him from sending us that The Good, Bad, and the Ugly logo he did for us. But he says, "What's up, guys? My favorite Star Wars alien has to be the Ithorian, which is the hammerhead that we see in the cantina. Hammerhead was the coolest figure back in the day. Then seeing Rurun Koroba, can't pronounce this last name, Rurun Korobi on the Tartakovsky Clone Wars, I probably added the power of the Force Ben Kenobi Jedi robe to him to create that character. One of my favorite figures, very powerful Force threats. Do you remember him when Grievous was trying to kidnap the Emperor? There was the Ithorian Jedi that was defending him, and we'd use his Force throats to basically enhance with the Force to kind of throw Grievous back.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool idea and a good character too. What? That's a great alien to pick. It was kind of in the back of my head because when you're thinking, at first when I was going to approach this, I was like, oh, maybe I should go with like kind of the kid shock value. And when you see the cantina, it's like, whoa, what's going on with all these different things in here,
Right.
Half of them look like really, really small Trandoshans. But yeah, the Ithorian, though, was very, very, very different. And plus, it made that noise and everything. And it was so alien to me, as a child. It was great. So that's a good pick.
Yep. And then we received another email, this one from Daniel G. And he asks, has anyone put an email in for the Duros? They're an entire species given a space light in a universe full of spaceships. They've got their own sector of Nar Shaddaa. Plus, they're one of the oldest types of aliens. And they're most famous for Cad Bane. So, yeah, definitely, there's a couple of them sitting around the cantina, which is their first appearance. They've been in pretty much every Star Wars video game ever. And then, of course, like I said, Cad Bane sets the standard for every cool Duros out there. And in Black Squadron, too. That's true. Lula.
Yeah. And, that's a really good pick, too, because even though, I would hope that this would survive, but at least in the EU, they were one of the first spacefaring species. And I think they encountered Corellians, if I remember correctly, and kind of taught them this. So, instead of like enslaving humanity, they had the good nature to actually share, which is kind of different than what you might expect. But yeah, that's another good pick. And another good alien from the cantina, separate language. I love, just think about that. Why don't we have a couple of these aliens kind of sitting there talking to each other like they're in a really big conversation, and we have no idea what they were talking about, but they were so engrossed in it. But it's just such a passing scene. one of those little elements that makes Star Wars so awesome.
Right. It occurs to me we get through this entire top 10 list, so we didn't mention Wookiees at all. Which, of course, you got Chewbacca in there. And in a way, he was such a main character.
I know.
I think he was easy to overlook as an alien species there. So, so yes.
I had him jotted down. I had the entire Wookiee species jotted down.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's just kind of impossible to think of the cast of Star Wars without Chewbacca, which is really why I did not include him in my top 10. But
they are phenomenal dancers. And
yes, as we discovered a couple episodes ago.
That's right. Mm-hmm. I would say, though, that the one alien species that's eluding our discussion is just staring us right in the face, Dennis. And that is man, the most dangerous game.
Okay, well, Scoundrels, you've heard our thoughts on our top 10, and I am certain there's someone that you like we've left out. So please let us know at sqpod@retrozap.com.
But most important of all, we've learned that the Emperor himself is personally overseeing the final stages of the construction of this Death Star. Many Bothans died to bring us this information. Admiral Akbar, please.
The adventures of everyone's favorite smuggler continue in Marvel's Han Solo. The scruffy-looking nerf herder has taken a mission for the Rebel Alliance after the destruction of the Death Star. Using the famous Dragon Void Run and intergalactic race as cover, Han and Chewbacca set out to recover world spies before they can be hunted down by the Empire. So, we're about 3 issues into this 5-issue miniseries, and so far I'm loving it. In about 60 seconds, what's your overall impression of the book?
Okay, love the art, love the story. I love how Han was trying to get out, but they keep pulling him back in. And I like the concept of having the race as a cover. It makes me wonder about how infamous Han is after this. But I also like how the interaction with the Imperials during it is not interaction with the main baddies. It's like just kind of sub-level Imperials doing their job and stuff. So sort of like a cloak and dagger.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points there. Very succinctly there. And, one of the first things that you said that I agreed with was Han's notoriety. He was there at the destruction of the Death Star. He was a key player. He piloted a ship that was recorded blasting its way out of the Mos Eisley spaceport with important people aboard it, and yet, his face is getting broadcast all around the galaxy, and who cares? It seems to be the response, and Leia and Admiral Kraken, they pick him specifically because he's someone who's not identified as being like with the rebellion at this time, so. That's an interesting that kind of caught my attention, that despite his involvement in rescuing Princess Leia and the destruction, the Battle of Yavin and the destruction of the Death Star, he's Darth Vader, and the Empire just doesn't know who he is yet.
Yeah. That's what makes this so fun for me. And plus I'm really loving the race. Not humans, or Wookiees. The actual,
right? The Dragon Void Run itself.
Yeah, the Dragon Void. Thank you. So I love seeing new ships. I love some of the characters they've introduced. You only have so much time to really do so much in a comic like this, and so I understand that they can't really fully flesh out every single one of the competitors. But I think they're doing a good job of just introducing just a little bit as a foil. And I'll go ahead and get this out of the way because there's 2 Twi'lek women who are pilots.
Yep, we definitely have a theme for this episode.
Quadleku.
Right. I like one of the theme that they've got going for this series, which is Han, prior to getting involved with Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi, has been a guy that was looking out for himself. He was looking, he had his ship, he had a job, he smuggled stuff from here to there. He would take pretty much any job that, made money for him. And then he gets involved with this fight, this battle, rescuing Princess Leia in the Battle of Yavin. And afterwards, he's turning down more jobs than he's taking, and anything smells funny, he's like, no, not doing it, to the point where someone calls him out on it. It's like, what is this? This is supposed to be a cakewalk. It's easy money, and now you're not doing it. And if I'm noticing, everybody's noticing, and you're not going to be in the game any longer. And then so Princess Leia has a couple of rebel operatives who kind of set him up to get his attention, and they want to borrow the Falcon, which, give me a break. Leia knew exactly what she was doing, which was, if I say I want to borrow the Falcon, I'm going to get Han to do this mission.
Right.
She didn't, she may have told the Admiral that, but, she knew exactly what she was getting when she sent these agents out to borrow the Falcon, so to speak. But so we get this theme, which is Han wants to go back to being his own guy, but at the same time, he's getting sucked into this rebellion, and he's starting to like being part of something bigger than himself. Not to mention, he's clearly developing feelings for Leia. And so the race is this cover for this mission where he can go and help rescue these rebel operatives, but at the same time, he can do it his way and try and win the race. So, he says over and over, and Chewbacca reminds him over and over, the race comes first. The race comes, not the race comes first. The mission comes first.
Right.
But he's, as soon as he's starting the race, he's like, we can win this, Chewie.
Right.
And so, in the issue 3, this last issue we got, he had an opportunity, he had an out, which is, if I get myself disqualified, I can still, as a courtesy to the racers, I can still fly to all the planets.
Right.
And then, that eliminates all the danger. But he didn't get himself disqualified.
Right. He had something to prove, I'm not sure I understand that character aspect, unless maybe he thought, it's more believable to the cover if I'm actually trying to compete,
There's that. And I also think you need to look ahead, because this takes place between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. I think I was going to say something about this. Yeah, good.
Right. And, like we were just saying, is that, the point of this race is he gets to go from planet to planet, and he gets to pick up rebel operatives that are being hunted down by the Empire, and they're dying off. And so now he's got this opportunity to participate in this famous race, and he could possibly win it. And, he's trying to maintain his independence. And if you remember, when we get to The Empire Strikes Back, he finally tells Admiral or General Rikian. Yeah, that it's like, I can't stay. I got to leave. I got a price on my head. I need to pay off Jabba the Hutt. And he made sure Princess Leia was in earshot, that she could hear that. And so he was trying to provoke a reaction from her.
And I love how Rikian says yeah, I know all about that. Death Mark's not an easy thing to live with.
Hate to lose you. You're a good man.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think when we get to that point, he's kind of at the tail end of this whole thing, which is, he doesn't want to be a joiner. He wants to be his own guy. He wants to do his own thing. He doesn't want to, it's kind of like Kanan in Rebels season 2, which is, he liked it when they were their own group and they did their own thing. He didn't want to be a joiner. He didn't want to get involved in the bigger war because he saw what happened in the bigger wars.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So what do you think of the race itself?
I think it's kind of interesting. I think they kind of build it up like there's a good bit of history behind it.
Right.
I think that, it feels like to me like and maybe this gets to the notoriety factor, there's enough of a public that's interested in this that it's profitable, but not enough to where, if you walked in your local, Jabba's grocery, that you could say, hey, how about that race at the Dragon Void Run? And everybody would be like, oh yeah, and talking all about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think it's interesting that Han, what's he doing after, where we see him Bloodline, right? What's he doing?
He's a racer.
He's a racer. So obviously he's got, he's got a little something to this. He's thinking maybe there's an alternative job market for me rather than just smuggling,
Yeah, it's definitely his post Galactic Civil War career. I'm enjoying the race. You know, the first stage was everyone get to hyperspace and they jump out of hyperspace and it's survive an ambush. And
with all those mines, right?
Right, and then the second phase was really it was an endurance test, so to speak, in that you couldn't drop below whatever the speed was, 150 veer knots, I think is what they called it, and it took 12 hours to get through that debris field. So you had to maintain a high rate of speed and survive getting through this debris field, and so it's a it's a test of, it's not just speed, it's a test of skill and, endurance and everything. And, they get down to, before that second stage of the race, they end up on some unnamed planet. And that's where the Empire shows up and says, we're putting an end to this. And you're all under arrest. This race is, that Imperial is throwing his weight around. This race is a distraction. It's causing too much unrest. And then finally some of the race sponsors get down and say, you really want to let them go because, the fueling stations here are all race sponsors, and you may not have enough fuel for your Star Destroyer if you apprehend these guys.
That 12-hour thing, when I got to that, I was like, I wouldn't blame Han if he wanted to bow out.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love the 2-page spread.
That was race. So cool. Yeah.
As with every hour of the race, there, it shows kind of where they are. There's one where he's drinking a bottle of water. It's just kind of like, almost there. And so they eventually make it through.
You think about that. It's like driving from Dallas to, I don't know, North Florida or something, and without stopping. And constantly having to avoid things.
And going, like 75, 80 miles an hour the entire way.
Which I've done. Just saying.
Texas.
Alabama was tough.
I don't think I want to know any more about this.
Okay.
May have to bail you out sometime.
Statute of limitations is up.
Well, good to know. But one of the things I appreciate is the art. Mark Brooks, you mentioned this also in your overall.
Yeah.
His Han Solo is spot on.
Yes.
It looks exactly like Harrison Ford from that time period.
What is that species at the very end of issue 3?
Oh, the cat-looking thing?
Cathar?
I don't know that we know officially what that is. With the reset of the canon, we get a cat species in the Old Republic game, but they look, I think it is the Cathar or something like that, but they are sufficiently different from this that I'm not sure it's supposed to be the same thing.
They were a fan favorite.
Yes, they were. But this thing looks more like a fluffy white tiger. Standing on two legs.
Like an Arctic cat of some type, something like that. Yeah. Like a pretty little kitty. Not so much because he's holding a blaster and snarling at, Chewbacca. So
let's make a prediction here to end this conversation. Where do you think this race is going to end up? How do you think this is all going to resolve itself?
Han was having a dream. No.
Okay.
I don't know. Obviously, okay, it's going to end up with Han coming back to the Rebel Alliance. We know that. It might end up on Ord Mantell.
Yeah, that's possible. I'm thinking that, I really am sensing the theme being here between his independence and his loyalty to a larger cause. And his independence is winning the race and getting the glory. And the larger cause is completing the mission on behalf of the rebellion and returning all these spies. We know there's this little side story of there's some sort of a traitor in the rebellion that's giving away their position and the position of these spies and getting some of them killed. And I can't help but think at some point Han's going to be forced to choose between completing the mission and rescuing these spies or getting them delivered out from underneath the nose of the Empire or winning the race. And that's going to, so he's going to have to choose between his independence or his service to the rebellion. And I think he's going to end up choosing his service to the rebellion.
Well, and it's sort of like a murder mystery, too, because he's going to be picking these people up, and we don't know which one of them is the traitor or the murderer. And so it's a little gumshoe action going on in the future issues. So definitely worth checking out, in my opinion. I think it's a significant story, much like we thought Vader number 20 was significant. In that it really shows some of the movements behind the motivations of one of the most important characters in the storyline. Yeah.
I agree completely. He once won a pod race and a sandcrawler. His legion of stormtroopers are known as the 649th Nose for Numbers. The dark side fell to him. His favorite interrogation technique is the Force Tickle. For him, the rule of 2 is company, but the rule of 3 is even better. He once beat Jabba the Hutt in a pie-eating contest. Battle droids never mistake him for Roger, not even on the telephone. He is the most interesting Sith in the galaxy.
I always drink, and sometimes, when I'm desperate, I drink Dulce Spear. Stay seathy, my fools.
All right. Once again, it's time for...
Silence, fools!
All right. First up, from Twitter, we have from Darth Nacho Mama, which is why I included this one. But she says, you guys kill me with the sound effects and background music. Love, and that was with a big gold heart. Star Wars in the classroom, though. So thank you, Darth Nacho Mama.
Yeah, thank you. Just come on, keep on tuning in, keep on listening, and we'll be here for you. All right. Next, we've got a follow-up email from Derek Spire. And he says, good afternoon, fellow rogue pilots. I mean, followers of the glorious empire. I heard the confusion in Darth Taxis' voice over my Twitter name and felt that I should clear it up with at least one of the great podcasts I listen to. Wow. That's high accolades, you know?
Yeah.
And actually, you know what? I'm really happy for this email because I've wondered this for quite a long time. Okay, so he's going to answer something I've thought about. When Twitter first started years ago, my wife, Lonnie Spire, decided that she would give it a try, and she decided to use my email and stopped using it immediately. Years later, Yahoo was doing a giveaway for the San Diego Comic-Con Black Series Boba Fett on Twitter. Imagine my surprise when I tried to create an account and it tells me, hey, you already have an account. So needless to say, I stole my own Twitter account from my wife. Also, I have a random question. If Batman, and in part Bruce Wayne, were real, do you think Bruce Wayne has a Batman collection?
All right. Well, first things first.
May the Bruce be with you, Derek Spire.
Yeah, first things first. Followers of the glorious empire. No. I'm a rebel. So that's part of the divide of this show. So I think most of this is directed towards you, Mr. Taxis.
The empire is glorious to be followed.
Right. Second, thanks for the clarification on the Twitter handle. That I was wondering about that too, and I've been confused because Derek is a pretty loyal listener. We hear from him quite a bit.
Oh yeah, he follows a lot of the Retros app goods.
And then for the random question about Batman, do you think Bruce Wayne would have a Batman collection?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes, he has the ultimate Batman collection. It's called the Batcave.
Oh yeah.
So he has, he has the Bat suit. He has the Bat, mobile and the
Bat
gigantic
shark
Tyrannosaurus Rex and the giant Penny in the Batcave.
The Bat X-ray ray detectors.
Yeah, he's got it all.
The Robin.
I mean, why get an action figure when he's got the real life full size thing?
Because I'm Batman.
That's true.
That's right.
So thank you, Derek. We appreciate the clarification, and that was a fun question, even though it had nothing to do with Star Wars. All right. So finally, from iTunes, our friend Darkside MX has left the following review. The dark side is strong with this one. Always entertaining and funny. They know way more about Star Wars than I do, and I love it. Man, I tell you, you've completely convinced everyone that we are a Dark Side podcast.
I don't know why. I'm like the world's worst Sith Lord. Half the time I'm picking flowers and rolling around in them and having snow cones and doing all sorts of things, and then occasionally beheading the elderly.
Yeah, well, you are also the most interesting Sith Lord. So,
on occasion.
well, thank you, Darkside MX. That was awesome. And as always, Scoundrels, feel free to send us an email at sqpod@retrozap.com. We love to read them, and we love your iTunes reviews.
And actually, no elderly were really beheaded during this or any other time. Just saying. Except for Obi-Wan. But that wasn't me. Okay.
Okay, so we had some Rogue One news. The Emperor is a Huttball owner, and plenty of Alien and Han Solo discussion there. Full episode.
It was full. You might say it was a alien smorgasbord.
You could say that. I won't, but you could.
Full of Leku.
Well, before we sign off, here's how you can find us on social media. The show can be found on Twitter at SQPod. Darth Taxis, as always, is at Darth Taxis, and I can be followed at the ever-confusing at DJKVER2. Also, we're on Facebook. We can be found there at facebook.com/SQPod.
If you have enjoyed the show, we would be very grateful if you would leave a 5-star review on iTunes, much like Darkside MX3 did. As any podcast will tell you, 5-star ratings are extremely helpful in getting the word out to others about the show. We recently received enough ratings that a 5-star rating now displays on iTunes, making us more powerful than you ever could have imagined. But we would love to have more reviews. Plus, we enjoy reading a good review on the show. And thank you to everyone that has tweeted out that they have been listening or have retweeted our show posts. It is much appreciated. Additionally, we at Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels would like to congratulate friend of the show, Aaron Lee, for his recent achievement. He was selected to create a theatrical poster to the re-release of Phantasm. This means that we'll probably have to start paying him what we owe him for our show logo design. You can read all about it in an article I wrote for retrozap.com. Mazel tov, Aaron.
Yeah, remind me, Taxis, to talk to you about emissions against self-interest there. Anyway.
I shamelessly self-promote.
Right. If anything from the show has captured your attention or imagination, we'd like to hear about it. And as I keep repeating throughout the show, our email address is sqpod@retrozap.com. The best emails, almost all emails, end up in silence pools. And so, let us know what you thought. And don't forget, we're honored to be part of the retrozap.com podcast network. Please check out RetroZap for other great shows, including Brews and Blasters, Blob of the Hutt, The Ardcast, Deucecast Movie Show, Doomcast, Skywalking Through Neverland, Talking Apes TV, Techno Retro Dads, The Trade Federation, We Know Nothing, and the Animaniacast. I would particularly like to suggest episode 70 of The Trade Federation. They dove into comics on that episode, and it was a great listen. And then for our legal stuff, Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels is not endorsed, affiliated with, or sponsored by Lucasfilm Limited and Disney. The show is mainly intended for entertainment and informational purposes. All characters, music, and sounds are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. Anything that is left over after that is the intellectual property of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels, unless otherwise indicated. And Taxis, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, just one. Really, this entire show is just one wild, hard punt.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Thanks for listening, everyone, and may the Force be with you.
Omaha, Omaha!